I've been low, but the way I earn through this pain, I window. The government been tapping the phone, it's all tracking control. Got a map on your home bad since way back when they pushed LSD and smacked the black prisoners trapped in a hole. Ask the Contras who push like cocaine if you tracking and spinning. They use the cold water, wear a mask in defenders, harassing defenders. And then they had the nerve to claim a crack epidemic. But being woke, they still sleeping on me like the pole in the streets.
What's going on, YouTube? It's Morley Knox Hill, and we are back with our reaction series. So today, man, we have a very, very special track on deck. When this dropped, this is one of the most controversial songs of its time. It turned a lot of heads. It got so much criticism. It had a lot of people talking about this. But for me, it's also one of the greatest, most classic songs within hip-hop history. And we're going to make history on my channel for the first time by welcoming Immortal Technique. It is time to dive into the world, the twisted, dark-ass story of Dance with the Devil. One. What a melodic yet haunting piano.
I once knew a nigga whose real name was William. His primary concern was making a million, being the illest hustler that the world ever seen. He used to fuck movie stars and sniff coke in his dreams. A corrupted young mind at the age of 13. Nigga never had a father and his mom was a fiend. She put the pipe down, but for every year she was sober. Her son's heart simultaneously grew colder. He started hanging out, selling bags in the projects, checking the young chicks looking for hit and run prospects. He was fascinated by material objects, but he understood money never bought respect. He built a reputation cause he could hustle and steal, but got locked once and didn't hesitate to squeal. So criminals he chilled with
6ix9ine would be proud of that one.
Hustle and steal, but got locked once and didn't hesitate to squeal. So criminals he chilled with didn't think he was real. You see, me and niggas like this have never been equal. I don't project my insecurities on other people. He fiended for props like...
That's a great line right there. I don't project my insecurities on other people. I think a lot of haters, a lot of trolls out there are really just projecting their insecurities upon others, and they want others to suffer because they're not really happy with themselves. And the biggest test for a critic is holding a mirror up to oneself.
Have never been equal. I don't project my insecurities on other people. He fiended for props like addicts with pipes and needles, and so he felt he had to prove to everyone.
Fiended for props like addicts with pipes and needles. He really relied upon gratification via others. Instead of finding his own way and his own path, he really wanted other people to applaud him. He needed to be virtue signaled by those around him. And I think it's important the way that Tech is setting this up in giving you this background, right? You've got this kid growing up who's taught to idolize a lot of the same things that all of us are taught to idolize if you watch enough TV, if you listen to enough songs and tracks out there in the culture, you know, chasing the bag, trying to get that money, eventually getting famous one day where you're running around, you're banging celebrities and all these hot chicks, and that's it. It's very shallow. It's very material driven. But this is what we're taught is going to bring us happiness. And if you look at this, you have a kid who didn't have a mother who was really there for him, didn't have a father who was there for him. So he didn't have that guidance, and he didn't have that parental gratification. So what is he doing now? He has to go out into the world and seek it through others. He needs others to applaud him and others to give him his props and respect instead of finding it and being confident within himself. I mean, listen, I'm diving deep into this, but this is technique we're talking about here. And I just love the way that he sets it up, because a really good story is all about how you build your characters and how you have character development. And for me, he's just like setting this sort of background information and planting these seeds that he's going to nurture and water as his story develops and grows.
He fiended for props like addicts with pipes and needles, and so he felt he had to prove to everyone he was evil. A feeble-minded young man with infinite potential, the product of a ghetto-bred capitalistic man.
A feeble-minded young man, right there. Very important line.
A feeble-minded young man with infinite potential, the product of a ghetto-bred capitalistic mental, coincidentally dropped
a ghetto-bred capitalistic mental. And I took shots at this in my recent Kill Shot remix. You know, you talk about the materialism that's promoted and pushed by so much of the mainstream. And, you know, so much rap and hip-hop has always been flooded with this chasing of material things and themes, which just ties in with capital consumerism.
Infinite potential, the product of a ghetto-bred capitalistic mental. Coincidentally, dropped out of school to sell weed, dancing with the devil, smoked until his eyes would bleed. But he was sick of selling trees and gave in to his greed. Everyone trying to be trife, never face the consequences. You probably only did a month for minor offenses. Ask a nigga doing life if he had another chance. But then again, there's always the wicked that knew in advance. Dance forever with the devil on a cold cell block. But that's what happens when you rape, murder, and sell rock. Devils used to be gods, angels that fell from the top. There's no diversity because we're burning in the melting pot.
Another great line, there's no diversity because we're burning in the melting pot. And I remember even like growing up back in the day, all this promotion of America is this great big melting pot of different cultures and immigrants coming in to help shape it, and you know, the virtue of the American dream. And in this case, he's taking that sort of idiom and that statement that's often lifted up and viewed out with such positive connotations, and he's like, hang on, we're burning from this melting pot. You see, you take an idiom and then you flip it and you insert the double meaning and you add a sinister undertone beneath of that. Really love just sort of that casual wordplay that Tech has given us right there with that just simple line.
What happens when you rape?
And obviously the line before that is dope as well. You know, with the devils were once angels. You know, Satan was once an angel. You know, we don't all start off bad and we set out to do bad in this world, much in the same way that he's guiding us with our main character that we're following in the narration that he's giving us. You know, this is not someone who set out to do evil, to be a devil, right? But devils had to start somewhere, and they all started as angels, but they fell from heaven.
Murder and sell rock. Devils used to be gods, angels that fell from the top. There's no diversity because we're burning in the melting pot.
And isn't it ironic that there's no diversity when we're all burning into one, right? That melting pot is supposed to reflect that diversity, but it's not.
So Billy started robbing niggas, anything he could do to get his respect back in the eyes of his crew. Starting fights over little shit up on the block. Stepped up to selling mothers and brothers the crack rock. Working overtime for making money for the crack spot. Hit the jackpot and wanted to move up to cocaine. Fulfilling the Scarface fantasy stuck in his brain. Tired of the block niggas treating.
I mean, you know, like the Scarface mentality, right? And the glorification now of these like gangster mafiosos. And you've seen so much of it yet again within hip hop and rap music. And as we'll get on later, you know, this is a greater allegory, and him using this to symbolize as a greater metaphor for his critique of the music industry, especially hip hop itself, and just some of the mentalities that go on within the culture and the way that it gets pushed and the lifestyles that get promoted.
Cocaine, fulfilling the Scarface fantasy stuck in his brain. Tired of the block niggas treating him the same. He wanted to be major like the cutthroats and the thugs, but when he tried to step to him, niggas showed him no love. They told him any motherfucking coward can sell drugs. Any bitch nigga with a gun can bust slugs. Any nigga with a red shirt can front like a blood. Even Puffy smoked the motherfucker up in the club, but only a real thug can stab someone till they die standing in front of the.
Love that line. Even Puffy smoked a motherfucker up in the club, because that's again a casual double, because you talk about like taking a puff of something, right? Versus P Diddy, Puffy, the man who's changed his names about 20 different times. Eminem would be proud of that Diddy diss right there. But you know, Puff Daddy has always been known as an entertainer. He's been a charismatic personality, but that's when the TV is on. That's when the camera is recording. You know, he's never really had that street credibility. He's never been from that life. I mean, even back in the day, I had bars playing off of Diddy, playing off of Shine, and being behind bars. And basically what happened was there was a nightclub shooting, and Diddy was the one who pulled the trigger. But it was Shine who came forward to the police, and Shine who said that he was the one behind the trigger, and he took the fall. He was the fall man for Diddy. And the deal was that Diddy was, you know, building his empire at the time. Bad Boy was growing. Diddy was always going to look after Shine. And a lot of people have said that, you know, Diddy kind of turned his back on Shine once Shine went to prison and did that bid basically for someone else. You know, he did it on Diddy's behalf. But what Tech is setting up here is he's building this charisma and this character of, you know, alluding to Diddy, showing that someone, you know, wants to glorify this life. Someone sees it on the films, watches Scarface, watches this lifestyle, wants to be about the money, but they're not really deep down in their heart like that. They're not from that background. It's all a front. It's all a visage. Just like the lines before that, talking about, you know, just putting on a red shirt doesn't make you a member of the Bloods. You know, it doesn't affiliate you into the gang. You're just running around wearing red colors, pretending that you're really about that lifestyle. And you see, again, just kind of the little details and breadcrumbs that he's giving us as we follow this trail, and he lays it out.
Motherfucker up in the club, but only a real thug can stab someone till they die. Standing in front of them, staring straight into their eyes. Billy realized that these men were well guarded, and they wanted to test him before business started. Suggested raping a bitch to prove he was cold-hearted. So now he had a choice between going back to his life or making money with made men. Up in the sight, his dreams about cars and ice made him agree a hardcore nigga is all he ever wanted to be. And so he met them Friday night at 2:45.
I love this sample down in the mix, and then this record scratching, man. It's just so gritty, and Tech has such a raspy voice. He's so cold-hearted with his delivery, man. It's just like the embodiment of kind of like sort of NYC underground and the rise of East Coast and just that gritty, raw hip-hop, man.
Everyone trying to be trife, never face the consequences. You probably only did a month for minor offenses. Ask a nigga doing life if he had another chance. But then again, there's always the wicked that knew in advance. Dance forever with the devil on a cold cell block. But that's what happens when you rape, murder, and sell rock. Devils used to be God's angels that fell from the top. There's no diversity because we're burning in the melting pot.
I think he's got a great sense of timing too. Like after he delivers his verses, he lets that record scratch come in, that sample happen, right? The piano kind of carries us away, and it just like lets your mind just like rest for a little bit and process everything he's giving us. He's got just a really dope sense of letting to like just let things breathe, right? And just to really let it just get more tense and more kind of anxious and somber. And then when it's time to come back in and to progress the story forward.
They drove around the project slow while it was raining, smoking blunts, drinking and joking for entertainment, until they saw a woman on the street walking alone, 3 in the morning, coming back from work on her way home. And so they quietly got out the car and followed her, walking through the projects. The darkness swallowed her. They wrapped her shirt around their head and knocked her onto the floor. This is it, kid, now you got your chance to be raw. So Billy yoked her up and grabbed the chick by...
Now you got your chance to be raw. And then, well, we'll get to it. He's about to portray this scene.
This is it, kid. Now you got your chance to be raw. So Billy yoked her up and grabbed the chick by the hair and dragged her into a lobby that had nobody there. She struggled hard, but they forced her to go up the stairs. They got to the roof and then held her down on the ground, screaming, "Shut the fuck up and stop moving around." The shirt covered her face, but she screamed and clawed. So Billy stomped on the bitch till he broke in her jaw. Them dirty bastards knew exactly what they were doing. They kicked her until they cracked her ribs and she stopped moving. Blood leaking through the cloth, she cried silently, and then they all proceeded to rape her violently. Billy was made to go first, but each of them...
See how I play off of talking about the raw and then raping her violently, right? Like going in kind of raw dog, as the innuendo goes, or your chance to be raw, to show that you're really about this life, that you're committed to it, that you're so cold-hearted and that you're rugged. And just like the details of this, man, just it's sickening. Like it, even now listening to it years later, it pisses you off and it shocks you too, and it takes you to another level, and you really are disgusted by this. But that's what great storytelling is. That's what great writing is, because we're right here. You know, we're right in this moment with Tech right now, and he's just got the details locked in as he can. You know, just I'm losing words here because I'm getting lost in this moment.
Fuck up and stop moving around. The shirt covered her face, but she screamed and clawed. So Billy stomped on the bitch till he broke in her jaw. Them dirty bastards knew exactly what they were doing. They kicked her until they cracked her ribs and she stopped moving. Blood leaking through the cloth, she cried silently, and then they all proceeded to rape her violently. Billy was made to go first, but each of them took a turn, ripping her up and choking her until her throat burned. Her broken jaw mumbled for God, but they weren't concerned. When they were done and she was lying bloody, broken and bruised, one of them niggas pulled out a brand new 22. They told him that she was a witness for what she'd gone through, and if he killed her, he was guaranteed a spot in the crew. He thought about it for a minute, she was practically dead, and so he leaned over and put the gun right to her head.
I'm falling and I can't turn back. I'm falling and I can't turn back.
Right before he pulled the trigger, and then
I've fallen and I can't turn back. Remember the lines about angels becoming devils and falling? Well, this is the fall of William, of Billy, as we've gotten. I think that's just a very important, like, quick little bridge and sample that gets like dropped in, because really the tone has completely changed now. You know, there's really no turning back from this point. Shouting out another Technique song. This really is the point of no return.
I'm falling and I can't turn back.
Right before he pulled the trigger and ended a life, he thought about the cocaine with the platinum and ice, and he felt strong standing along with his new brothers. Cocked the gat to a head and pulled back the shirt cover, but what he saw made him start to cringe and stutter, cause he was staring into the eyes of his own mother. She looked back at him and cried cause he had forsaken her. She cried more painfully, and when they were raping her, his whole world stopped. He couldn't even contemplate. His corruption had successfully changed his fate, and he remembered how his mom used to come home late, working hard for nothing, cause now what was he worth? He turned away from the woman that had once given him birth, and crying out to the sky cause he was lonely and scared, but only the devil responded cause God wasn't there. And right then he knew what it was to be empty and cold, and so he jumped off the roof and died with no soul. They say death takes you to a better
Jumped off the roof and died with no soul.
empty and cold, and so he jumped off the roof and died with no soul. They say death takes you to a better place, but I doubt it. After that they killed his mother and never spoke about it. And listen, cause the story that I'm telling is true, cause I was there with Billy Jacobs and I raped his mom too. And now the devil follows me everywhere that I go. In fact, I'm sure he's standing among one of you at my shows. In every street cipher listening to Little Thug's flow. He could be standing right next to you and you wouldn't know. The devil grows inside the hearts of the selfish and wicked. White, brown, yellow, and black color is not restricted. You have a self-destructive destiny.
Doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter, you know, your background. It's not restricted. The devil does not pick and choose.
Wicked, white, brown, yellow, and black color is not restricted. You have a self-destructive destiny when you're inflicted, and you'll be one of God's children that fell from the top. There's no diversity because we're burning in the melting pot. So when the devil wants,
there's no diversity because we're burning in the melting pot. Notice how he takes those lines and now they have an even heavier impact and meaning. And he uses these to really bring the story back around and to kind of give you his moral of the story and his conclusion. And I think, you know, that turning point that really just hits so much heavier and different is when he says he was right there and he raped his mom too. Because now it's not just like an abstract version. He's not just like a third party telling the story. Now it's more of a first person narrative because he's inserted himself into the tale. And it just really just opens your eyes up even more and shocks you. And I can't help but think of the Greek tragedy of Oedipus, who killed his father and ended up marrying his mother, even though he didn't realize it was his mother at the time. So essentially he ended up having sex with his mother. And then once he realized that, he went and he gouged his eyes out, much in the same way that you have Billy coming to this realization that, you know, his choices do have consequences. And in this case, he went to the point of no return. He ended up doing sexual acts with this woman who really was his mother. So in a very twisted way, I guess, you know, he came out one way and he decided to go back in the other way and hit the reverse Uno card on life. No, that's a terrible joke for a serious and tragic situation. But this really is a modern form of a hip hop Greek tragedy. The way that Tex sets this up and the way that he wants to spin it and give it to us.
Cause we're burning in the melting pot. So when the devil wants to dance with you, you better say never, because a dance with the devil might last you forever.
It's a great line right there. You know, you accept that first dance with the devil, it might be the last one that you take, and it will last you forever, because then he takes your soul and you end up down the gates of hell with him.
Cause a dance with the devil might last you forever.
And what a carry out too. Just let it fade out and just really just let that carry us away. I mean, it's just, it really highlights the emceeing ability of Technique. How he can just like grip you and not let go. For a song where the beat doesn't really change a lot. You know, in 6 minutes and 52 seconds, this is it. This is what we get. But because of the nature of his storytelling ability and just his way to just weave these words and insert us into this world. And it just walks away with such a shocking plot twist at the end and reveal. But at the same time, besides it being so eye-opening, and I remember when this first dropped, how controversial it was and how many people were talking about like this should be censored and stuff. But, you know, the second you start trying to censor art, especially art that really pushes moral boundaries and makes us look deep within ourselves and ask questions. You know, the second you start putting filters on that, well, then you start to take away from what artists and MCs like this can and can't create. And I've always loved how Tech is always willing to push the envelope and push boundaries. And, you know, he's willing to stand up for what he believes in. And for me, one of the genius parts of this piece is the fact that not only is it a great story, but also he's got that moral and that message at the end, but it's also a greater allegory and metaphor for, you know, the way that women are viewed within the world. Like in this case, they viewed women as just a throwaway piece and a pawn, and this misogyny, right? And this very machismo culture, especially because Technique has Latino roots. So you have like huge machismo culture within that, but you also have it within hip hop itself. Him being from Harlem, you know, the birthplace of hip hop, right? The roots of the block parties. I mean, you know, Tech has been a part of the culture for a very long time, and he very much cares about it and where it's going. So he's criticizing and he's critiquing a lot of the messages within that culture, whether it's the materialism of the culture, whether it's this like thuggish lifestyle that has to be glorified, that this is the way to go get money, this is the way to get the bag, this is what's going to find you happiness. Whether it's, you know, the mistreatment of women, the way that women are viewed within the culture, within the music, you know, it really makes us look at these different themes of what hip hop is promoting and what rap is promoting and what these communities are promoting. And what Tech is saying is that, you know, it starts with something small. It starts with the decision to maybe do something that you think is good, you know, trying to go get money, trying to be rich and successful, but do the ends justify the means? And in this case, they obviously don't, because that one decision can then snowball. And before you know it, you're in a contract and a deal with the devil that you can't get out of. And he really wants you to think about your decisions in terms of your lifestyle, in terms of what's important to you. And in this case, too, you start thinking about family and how important family is, right? And this tie-in with his mother. And then he kills himself out of guilt because he can't deal with someone who sacrificed for him. And it all comes around in the end. You know, your actions and what you do have consequences. And I really love the moral themes, the rawness of the story, and how it really just gets the wheels turning. I mean, this is a classic for a reason. And this is something that will stand the test of time. A decade from now, I hope someone else is breaking it down. 20 years from now, I'm sure someone will be, because this is music that is truly timeless. Immortal Technique, you were Knox Hill certified. Hope you guys liked today's video. Listen here at the end. Obviously, enjoying the content. Do me a huge favor. Support the channel directly. Subscribe, notifications on. It really, really does go a long way. I love you. Stay safe, stay positive. This is one only Knox Hill. You know, I'll catch you again.